Will Victor Wembanyama live up to the hype? And is that hype that we're talking about only mean becoming the greatest basketball player of all time? This is J Bash Raps, episode 6. I was born in 1997. My earliest memories of NBA basketball probably goes back to Iverson, Shaq, Kobe, Tracy McGrady, all those stars that we loved from the early 2000s. Very vaguely though. But I say I really got into it and started understanding basketball more so around 2004, and by 2006 I'd say I was heavily invested. Keep in mind, 2006, I'm only 9 years old, so when I say heavily invested, I mean just watching basketball. Understand, I just remember that year actually watching the NBA Finals, the Mavericks versus the Heat, watching Dwayne Wade get his first ring. That was actually my first year ever just filling out a playoff bracket. So that's what I mean by heavily invested. Like, I was just more aware of what was going on instead of just watching games passively. But I say all that to say this. I got to watch Kobe Bryant's whole prime. I watched him beat up on my Golden State Warriors for years. I saw LeBron come in the league as an 18-year-old kid from high school and have an instant impact and actually live up to the hype. I saw Kevin Durant, a 6'11", pretty much shooting guard, become possibly one of the best scorers of all time. I watched Stephen Curry literally change the way the game of basketball is played forever. No, for real, like at all levels. I went to a middle school basketball game not too long ago, and these kids be getting the threes up. And they be making them, bro. It's not like they're just throwing them up and missing. These kids can shoot. But that's a whole nother video in itself. All this history I've been blessed to be alive to see, but I'm here to say today I have never in my 28 years of living seen anything like Victor Wembanyama. There's no comparison. To compare him to KD as a whole, which is the easiest comp for most of us to make, is limiting in itself. There is no comparison. We spent most of our lives comparing Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron, all to end up here in 2026 with this 7'5" alien. Wemby has a chance to be the actual next Michael Jordan, the actual next solidified GOAT that there will be no debates about for years to come. Now, what do I mean by that? Keep in mind, I am not talking about play style right now. I'm talking simply about the idea of a unicorn. As we know, Kobe was a carbon copy of Mike. LeBron, one of the most pure players of all time, taking something from all the greats. But Wemby is completely his own. The reason Michael Jordan became the phenomenon that he was because the league had never seen anything like him before. This is Victor Wembanyama right now in 2026. We have never seen any player like Wemby. There's no real comparison, just like there was no real comparison from Michael Jordan when he burst onto the scene. Now, as we all know, since we heard about the 7'5" kid from France years back, then got to see more of him as he approached 18 years old, it wasn't hard for anybody to see that this guy was going to have an instant impact once he got to the NBA. By the time Wemby got into his rookie season, we already knew, if anything, this kid was at least going to be one of the greatest rim protectors of all time. But his ceiling, limitless, and we're seeing that more than ever now at the start of Wemby's third NBA season. Wemby's first 2 seasons, he already made himself look like a man amongst boys at the highest level of NBA basketball. Playing with the struggling Spurs roster, we got to see Wemby pretty much experiment in the NBA for his first 2.5 years, pretty much doing whatever he pleased out there on the court. While a lot of people, including myself, would nitpick a bit at the balance between playing on the perimeter and playing in the paint, we saw more than enough in those first 2.5 seasons to see this guy is going to be unstoppable once he finds the balance between being a perimeter player and an enforcer in the paint. Now, what I wasn't sure about is exactly when this was going to click for him, but I know it's only a matter of time. In fact, I already see signs through this season. Wemby is definitely still more perimeter centric, but in important games, if you watch him, you see he utilizes his ability to completely dominate in the paint, which is what I think we're going to see a lot from Wemby in the playoffs more so. So what changed for Victor this season? The easy answer is just growth, strength, and comfortability, but those things happen naturally for a professional athlete at this level. The change that I see on Victor most in his third year compared to his first 2 is mindset. Now let's talk about exactly where that mindset change happened. We all saw Wemby in the 2024 Olympics, and before we even get to this last offseason where we saw him training with Monks, Kevin Garnett, and Hakeem Olajuwon, I do want to highlight how important losing the way that he did to the USA was the start of the shift of this mindset. Having to watch the stars of this league that he's equipped to take over at some point snatch a gold medal from him in his young career in that fashion definitely had to change his mindset. And even in his second season before the blood clot, you could see that Wemby was seeking vengeance. Losing a gold medal game to a lot of these foreign players playing for their countries hurts just as much, sometimes even more than losing the NBA championship. If you don't think that Wemby replays that game in his head every night and is already thinking about the next Olympics, then you are not seeing the psychotic mindset that he has yet. I literally watched Wemby cry like a baby after losing that game. This skinny 20-year-old kid literally had no doubt in his mind that he could beat a team with LeBron James, Stephen Curry, and Kevin Durant all inside the starting lineup. Wemby even being the factor that he was at this age and actually almost pulling off the impossible, in my opinion, isn't recognized enough, clearly because Steph kind of took over. Despite all we saw during that Olympics, all the great basketball we saw, that last shot that Steph hit is kind of what we remember at this point. But no later than one offseason, we saw Wemby take a different approach, but each one made sense for him in his pursuit to greatness. We saw him isolate himself in the mountains with real monks. This was likely to learn to stay poised and disciplined through an 82-game season. We saw him link up with Kevin Garnett. This was most likely to balance that poise and discipline with intensity. And last but not least, we saw him link up with Hakeem Olajuwon. This is the one that I was probably most excited about. Someone who wants to see Wemby utilize scoring in the paint a bit more than he did his first 2 seasons. The crazy thing is, a lot of the stuff Wemby learns from Hakeem, due to him being 7'5", will be able to extend far outside the paint. Imagine a dream shake from the free throw line or even higher up. But Wemby linking up with these 3 people during the offseason, coming in 1 year after an Olympic loss and a shortened season, it let me know that Wemby is determined to be the greatest basketball player of all time. In fact, one of my favorite things about Wemby that I feel like hasn't been highlighted enough, we do see a little bit of it now through his early career, is his competitive nature. I actually feel like Wemby is somewhat bothered by his competitive spirit not being highlighted, especially after hearing what he recently said, actually right before a game, about Chet Holmgren in that Taylor Rooks interview. Now, the competitive tension between Wemby and Chet hasn't been a secret. In fact, some say it might be even one-sided, as Chet doesn't really throw shots at Wemby, but it seems like Wemby loves to throw shots at Chet. To me, that Taylor Rooks interview made me realize actually how sick Wemby was, the type of sick we like to see in our all-time great players. And yeah, I know it's still early, but mentality-wise, I think Wemby is showing us that he is more Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant than he is Stephen Curry, LeBron James, or Tim Duncan. Outside of his own teammates, nothing about Wemby says he's in this league to make friends. And I absolutely love that about him. In fact, it might be one of my favorite things about Wemby. December 13th, 2025 will be a day remembered in NBA history. What we saw this day was the Spurs handing the one-loss Thunder their second loss in the NBA Cup semifinals. Wemby only played 20 minutes, having the impact that he did. The interview clip before the game, throwing shots at Chet, then after the game, throwing shots at Shea with his ethical hoops comment. Wemby just showed us exactly who he was on December 13th, 2025. The kid is coming for blood. Think about it like this. If he was able to beat the best team we've seen since the 2016 Warriors, I guess that's what people were saying at least, playing only 20 minutes, imagine what the future looks like for this kid. I wouldn't be surprised if they make the finals push this season if Wemby is able to stay healthy. But if not this season, I'll say this. This is the last season for Kevin Durant, Jokic, Luka, LeBron, Steph, anybody who's in the West. This 2025-26 NBA season could very well be their last chance to make a serious finals push inside this Western Conference. Especially thinking about the dominance of the Thunder and the rise of the Spurs, it looks like they will be running things in the West for a long time. Overall, there just hasn't been a player that simply makes me say wow or leaves my jaw to the floor the way Wemby has already in his early career, probably not since prime Stephen Curry. There hasn't been a player that's shown he's ready to make an instant impact and win since a young LeBron James. There hasn't been a player with this much skill, with a competitive nature, who feeds into the rivalries, who feeds into the narratives, and isn't looking to make friends in the league a lot of people will say is too friendly, since Kobe and Mike. Wemby is the dream superstar that the NBA has been looking for and us as fans have been waiting for so long. And I have no doubt in my mind, and pray to the basketball guys every day, that this guy stays healthy, that he will be the greatest basketball player of all time. But let's see how this video ages in 10 years.